You know, one of the great authors had a little phrase on a book that I kind of got a kick out of relative to adjustment. You know, and it goes something like this. And this happens to each and every one of us every once in a while. When you kick the tiger in the ass, when you kick the tiger in the ass, you better have a plan for when he turns around. You know, now, we all go off on a little divergent kick once in a while, but we better have a plan to straighten things out as well. And remember that what you're about to go into, all 360 some of you, is an atmosphere where people just don't give a damn where you're from or what your degree says or what your name is or what your color is or anything else. What they care about is productivity. Now, for you 360 people, you are way, way beyond the position at the starting line that the normal college graduate has. Because this is an extra special education that you have gotten here. So maybe you're 5 yards beyond the starting line as a result of your having attended Trine University and worked and studied under this faculty. But if you're not careful, you can lose that. You know, one of my most interesting experiences was coaching Michael Jordan, the Olympic team, in 1984 when we won the gold medal in Los Angeles. And Michael had played for Dean Smith at North Carolina. And Dean and I were friends throughout our entire careers. And I don't think either one of us particularly enjoyed playing against the other. We had to do it 5 or 6 times and probably split those games. But it was a real pleasure for me to coach Jordan. And Jordan was more than just a great basketball player. Jordan was very attentive to what was going on. Jordan was a great observer. My wife and I are going down an interstate in Alabama last year. Going down there to do some fishing, and Karen was going with me. And I said, Karen, turn the radio to 90.3. It's a country western station, really good music, 90.3. She turns it to 90.3, and country music comes on. And Karen looks at me and she said, how in the world did you know that 90.3 was a country western station? And I said, oh, I came down here about 25 years ago. I just remember 90.3. And she said, that's amazing. 20 years ago, and you remember that? And I said, sure, I remember that. Well, about a mile back, there was a big billboard that said, tuned to 90.3 for country western music. I have yet to let her in on that secret. Be observant in what you do. The ability to observe is the most important ingredient in being good of anything that I know. Be able to observe. People would try and the press is a difficult thing to deal with in many cases, and there are some very good people in the press. I unfortunately have not run across a whole lot of them, but I know they're there somewhere. The press used to really try to corner Jordan. And, well, Coach Smith does it this way, and Coach Knight does it that way. What do you think? Coach Knight does it this way, and Coach Smith does it that way. What do you think? Michael had a great answer for him. He would say, well, Coach Smith is the master of the 4-corner offense, and Coach Knight is the master of the 4-letter word. And that's how he used to start out dealing with the press. Now, as great an athlete as Jordan was, he really had a sense, and this is what I was impressed most about him. He had a sense of his responsibility. He had a sense of what he had to do. not just to be a part of the team, but to be a leader. And it went beyond what he had learned on the basketball floor. I mean, the kid had an amazing, we're playing Uruguay. Now, 4 of these faculty members, or 5 of these faculty members, if they'd listened to what the hell I have to say, could beat Uruguay. I mean, they just weren't very good. And I told Mike before the game in Los Angeles in the Forum, I said, Mike, I don't want to get on anybody tonight. I want to relax. I want everybody to play a lot. And I want this game to be over with in 5 minutes. I want Uruguay to be defeated in 5 minutes. Now, is there any question? No, sir, I got it, 5 minutes. At 4 minutes, there's a TV timeout, and we're ahead by 19 points. I look at the scoreboard. Mike looks past me, looks up at the scoreboard, and says, Coach, we're a minute ahead of schedule. Now, that's the kind of player that I like to coach. And it was coaching the Olympic team was very similar in my background, I think, in my lifetime to the degree that I have received here this morning. Henry Iba, one of the great coaches in history, called me when I was named as the Olympic coach in 1984, and he said, son, you've got to keep one thing in mind. You're not just working for your school now, you're working for your country. And I translate that to you young people, you 360 would-be graduates here, that you're not really just working for yourself, you're working for your company, your family, you're out there to prove yourself and to work at proving yourself. And just like Jordan, as good as he was, had to prove himself with me. We're playing Spain in the gold medal game, and we're ahead by 27 points at the half. Jordan has scored 19 points in the half. He has 11 rebounds and 7 assists. And he had played 13 minutes out of 20. Well, it's hard for me to go in at the half, and I hope it will be hard for you folks to go in at halftime satisfied. Satisfaction is the first step toward defeat. Don't ever forget that. Never be satisfied. There's always something better. But here we are, 19 points ahead at the half. Jordan's only played 13 minutes. He's scored, he's rebounded, he's had assists, and it's hard for me to say, boys, you're doing great. We're really okay. Gosh, damn, we got them on the run. We're good. You know, so finally I came up with, well, here's my plan. So I walked in, and I went right in front of Jordan. I thought if I said something to Jordan, everybody else is going to say, man, what's he going to be upset with when he comes to me if he's upset with Jordan? Scored a lot, rebounded a lot, passed really well. And I said, Mike, when the hell are you going to set a screen? You know, when you're in the game, we got 4 guys screening, and you scoring or rebounding or passing, but we get you out of the game, all 5 guys are screening. Now, when are you going to set a screen? And I like people that aren't afraid. I like people that are willing to say something that they believe in. And with that, Michael looks up at me and he said, Coach, didn't I read recently where you thought I was the quickest player you'd ever been around? And I said, Mike, what the hell has that got to do with you screening? And he said, Coach, I think I'm setting them quicker than you can see them out there. And so Jordan understood. Jordan understood there were limits to which he could take me, and he knew that he hadn't reached that limit by that time. But now, you're going to have to go maybe another step. And my step was Sam Perkins, who had played with Jordan at North Carolina, and Chris Mullins, who had played at St. John's, were sitting in the 2 spots next to Michael. And as soon as Michael said that, their heads immediately went down. And I walked over and I said, "You two guys thought this was really funny, didn't you? Now you've got to be prepared. You know, remember when you kick the tiger in the ass, have a plan for when he turns around." And so I walked over to these two and I said, "You really enjoyed Jordan's little repartee here. Well, let me tell you how we're going to play the second half here against Spain in the gold medal game. We're going to start the game the same way we started it, which means you two are going to start the second half. But if you can't slow Jordan down setting screens in the second half so I can see him, I'm taking you two out of the game." Now, how do you like that one? So you always got to be able to hang in the game, and particularly when you get into a position of responsibility, which I hope all of you are able to reach, then there's always a little give and take involved. And there's a little give and take for you in trying to reach that position of responsibility. But keep in mind that it's a long way off where you're just giving and not taking. Always keep that in mind. It's a little bit like the grandfather and the grandson are walking the mule to town. And a guy stops him and says, "Why is the grandson walking? Let him ride on the mule." So Grandpa puts the grandson on the mule. Guy stops a little later down the road. "Why is the grandson on the mule and the grandfather walking?" So Grandpa got on the mule. Grandson is walking. A little bit further, a guy stops and says, "How come you both aren't riding the mule?" So they both ride the mule a little ways and they're stopped again. And they're told, "Well, why are you riding the mule? Why don't you let the mule walk and you two walk?" They go on a little further and they're stopped again. And the guy says, "You two ought to be carrying the mule. You think of all the mule that is done for you, you two should be carrying the mule." So they carry the mule. And they have to cross a railroad bridge and it's slippery, icy, and they slip. The mule goes in the river, it drowns. They lose the mule. And the moral of the story is when you try to please everybody, you're going to lose your ass. So think about that. You young people, think about that.